Hi everybody. Right, as promised, the review of the Technics 1210 Mark II against the Denon VL12 Prime Series turntable. So, no introduction really needed on the Technics. We all know this by now, especially if you follow my page, because this is all I do. So Technics 1210 Mark II, probably the most iconic turntable ever to be made with the analog pitch control, versus the Denon VL12 Prime Series turntable. Lots of gadgets and gizmos, and I'm going to give you my honest opinion between the two. Okay, so let's start with the Technics. We all know how this works, guys. Basics on this, no fancy gizmos needed. You have your target lamp, as we all know. This one doesn't bloody work. This is a customer's deck, by the way, everybody. This is what I'm doing the review on. So, non-working pop-up lamp. Good start. 3345. No 78 or any special features like that. On-off twisty switch. The on-off switch, which you can easily knock, which, to be fair, I never really have a problem with it, but some people do, hence why I changed it in the newer versions. You've then got, with the Mark II, you have the mighty click in the middle, which is basically a ball bearing and a spring. There's also a notch within the carbon track, which then activates the quartz. So when you actually play the turntable and you move it away and you move it back, it locks at 0, take it out, it goes out. This turntable's been modified to have the speed a lot faster. That's going to all be changed back. Basically what the customer has done is changed the pitch potentiometer underneath the top of the platter on the main board. So we're going to calibrate that as well as the pitch slider once I've rebuilt it after. Anyway, that's that. You then got no bells and whistles. So 45 adapters, 7-inch adapters as you've got. We then obviously got height adjustable tone arm section, which is all separate. So the base, the height ring and the assembly is all separate, can all be dismantled, taken apart, serviced, anti-skate, all the usual bits. Okay, not really much to them, to be honest. Then you've got, well, in terms of how they look and what they do internally, different kettle of fish. This thing, now let's start off if you just look at it how it is. I mean, it is, I'll be honest, I like the way it looks. The first thing that I noticed about this that I really liked, which this has got a lot of people on the fence, is actually the platter. Now, it's got a chamfered edge on it. So the idea is that you can run your fingers along the bottom of the deck as you go on the bottom of the platter instead of on where the dots are, because there's obviously no dots on this turntable. So a lot of people with Technics, when you're trying to stop the platter or trying to physically manipulate it, you can obviously feel the grooves from the strobe dots underneath your fingers. Now, strangely, I find it better and easier to mix with this than I do on the Technics, purely because you could just run your finger along it, and it is literally so smooth, and I'll get to that in a second. It is really, really smooth. The first difference between the two of these, well, we'll talk about the deck first. So the VL12, guys, this has been out for a little while now. It is already discontinued. I will add that as well for people out there that are wanting to buy this. Now, it is a bit of a shame. This could have been a fantastic turntable, as I've added before in my previous video, the little sneaky peek that I did. This could have been a fantastic turntable. And there's two things that let this down. Well, audio quality in general, because when you tap it, if you can hear it, you can get an idea of just how bad that is going to be going through your speakers. So vibrations and dampening. Technics. You get the picture? That's number one. Number two, it's the tone arm. What a shame. So it does, I mean, to be fair, it tracks fine. It actually does track okay. It just feels very, very cheap. I mean, they've got this new lock system for the tone arm, as you can see here. So when you put it down, you can either lock it all the way in when you're not using it, or when it's weighted and there's a cartridge on the edge, you can literally just leave it there. So you can lift it on, lift it off. Then when you finish, pop it back in. Now that idea I quite like, and I may very well do something like that with my printer to get that going and put it onto Technics. That's not bad, but I'll make it a lot better. Because obviously Technics has the clip, which, as we know, over time can get quite worn. It gets quite loose, and you've got to jig underneath. You've got to take the whole thing apart, take the old one off, put a new one on, spend a fortune, or change the angle and move it in. So not ideal, but can't knock them. They're iconic. This, different kettle of fish. So it locks in. Again, feels quite loose. This is purely because of the pivot, the spring-loaded pivot underneath, which holds the arm in. I mean, you can't have it all, I suppose, but they could have made that a little bit better, to be fair. The arm on this looks like something out of an old Gemini unit. They're claiming it's not, but I really beg to differ. I haven't taken this deck fully apart or anything yet to have a good old look, but the actual, just from looking at the top and the surrounds, if you look at some of the old Gemini units, I would not be surprised if that's been taken from there and they're taken as part of the design. Counterweight, again, rear weight, not really much to say about that. But in terms of the actual arm assembly itself, it's very cheap. This is the one thing that lets this deck down. They've gone and spent a lot of money on a premium turntable, as they call it, a premium turntable with a nice finish to it. This, by the way, isn't how the deck is all over. Now, this threw me a little bit because I had a look at this trying to take it apart the other day when I had 5 minutes spare. When you undo all of these bolts, which are all Allen keyed, okay, or star keyed. I think they're Allen keyed, aren't they? If I remember. Yes, they're Allen keyed. Once you undo all these Allen keys, this entire top plinth all comes off, which is not a bad thing to some degree because you can literally, I can pop this off for somebody and I can wrap it in any colour, any design they want and put it back on. And it is very straightforward to do. So that's one good thing about this. Obviously, being discontinued, I wouldn't imagine a lot of people are going to be running out to get these now. But it is a shame. So that's the tone arm with this. The platter, like I've just stated, it's a completely renovated thing that they've done. It's a heavyweight unit. The magnet itself underneath is huge. The damping underneath, it's about 3mm thick. It's very thick, very heavy. And it is, in general, a very nice quality bit of kit, to be honest. So, in general, the deck itself is nice. The buttons next. So, the start and stop, 33, 45, obviously being backlit, as you can see. It doesn't actually flash. This is just because of the camera. So, the only thing that lets these down is the quality. It just feels plasticky. When you push a Technics, for an example, obviously they're a lot looser. You've got a spring-loaded button underneath with this. It's got a physical spring. If they had implemented something like this, you know, gone a little bit further and actually spent a bit of time and money, instead of just putting a couple of really tough tactile switches underneath, that would have felt a lot better. The strobe as well, they've gone for this chrome-looking plastic strobe cover. They've got a recessed cover as well, so you can't actually knock the on-off switch, which is a good idea. Obviously, like they do with the M3Ds, the Mark 5s, the M5Gs, etc. But the actual cover itself doesn't look too bad, but it does feel quite cheapy. I mean, you can see it, you can hear it. I'm moving it slightly doing that. The one thing that sets this deck off from everybody else, unless you want to modify Technics, as you know what I do with the underplatter lighting like I do with Technics, is the halo lights underneath. Now, these are actually built into the turntable, and you can select different variations of colour. Now, you can't switch between one colour to another automatically. It doesn't chase around the deck or anything. It is purely a static LED light. There's a control on the side of the deck. If I move the deck around a bit so you can see it. There's a control underneath here. You can set the torque level, you can set the platter ring colour, and there's also the brightness of the LED. So in other words, I could get my fingers underneath here and turn this rotary knob, and you can see it here. It will change gradually into different colours that you choose. All RGB colour mixing on this. Purple. It's a nice bright white, they call it. It's like a bluey white colour it comes out, though you can't really see it properly on the camera. But I find the best one, if you're going to be using this in the living room, guys, and you haven't got a man cave or a little home studio, the best one to use in the living room without annoying your missus is the red, believe it or not, because it's very, it's not as in your face, especially on the brighter section. Now, you can adjust the brightness, I will say this, and you can actually turn the LEDs off. So even on the, let's say for example, blue, that's how they pretty much set. If let's go turn the brightness down for the LEDs, and we'll see what difference it will be. Give me a second. Here we go. So off, it's lower setting, and higher setting. And you can see on here, there isn't really a great deal of probably any real noticeable difference between the two. So really, if you're going to be using this at night time and don't want the missus annoying you and just trying to fall asleep on the sofa, turn them off. Best thing to do. So full whack and red. Red or off is my advice to you if you're using them in a living room. And this is talking from experience, guys, all right? Anyway, torque level next. Let's talk about the torque. So, in general, this is you checked out the startup time with this, for an example, with Technics. Nothing really out of the ordinary there. This one hasn't been touched yet, but even for a deck that has never been serviced, it starts up relatively quick. Brake probably needs a little bit of adjusting, but that's not bad. And as you can see, it's fighting my finger quite nicely. So this motor, the brushless motor on this one here, is in nice good condition. Now let's go to the Denon turntable. So the Denon, again, watch this. So start time is pretty much instant. Again, there is 2 different settings for torque. So if we switch the torque switch underneath here that I was telling you about, we get it onto low. You can see on there. Far off for Technics actually on the lower setting. Now I found it I pretty much set this on high. Now I usually, with any super OEM turntable I've done a review on, I've used them for a while and I've got to grips with them, I usually leave them all on low settings, as everybody knows, because torque on these is a bit of a pain. But especially for mixing, I find with lower torque it's usually easier to mix with. I find it's not as heavy handed on the platter and you've got to be really violent, a bit more heavier, and it's something you're not used to if you're jumping straight from Technics. Now this turntable, out of all of them, now you've all seen my reviews done like the reloop for an example, including the dreaded Pioneer many moons ago. This one whoops them all hands down, and that's not, I'm not just saying this, I was not expecting this turntable to be any good at all. Also, after hearing all of the issues that people are saying on forums, I tend to take different people's opinions with a pinch of salt, because everybody's got their own opinions, haven't they? Like you get some people that are anti-Technics. It's like, well, how can you be anti-Technics? I mean, this is what started it all. You know, the whole pitch slider unit was because of Technics. From the SL-1200 or 120, the original with the rotary, then they moved it onto the slider. And this is what started it. If it wasn't for this, it wasn't for Technics doing this or Panasonic doing this wouldn't be happening. So how people can argue about this, I do not know. But like I say, if you touch the 2 of these, we'll start them both up. Obviously, this is now on high setting. When you touch the platter, as everybody knows on the Technics, you'll see the strobe start to jump when I put a bit of pressure on. You see that? Now, what's happening there is, obviously, at the moment, we're set on 0% pitch. Now, no matter where the pitch is set, that, when you're touching it, is basically the deck's way of turning around and saying, oh, it shouldn't be slowing down. Why is it slowing down for? And it tries to correct itself very quickly back to the correct speed. Now, you can bypass that, but you'd have to readjust everything, and it is a bit of a pain. But that's the norm with Technics, okay? You can see it on there when I touch it. It doesn't damage it in any way. It's designed to do this, to speed up and correct itself. Now watch what happens when I do this with the Denon. Now you can all see on here, there's no strobe dots, or strobe dots even, sorry. You can see there's some lines actually physically on the platter. Now when I touch the chamfered edge, now watch the lines, guys. Now my finger is on that. It's not even slowing down. Now if I touch it now, you see it moving? Putting lots of pressure on. I can literally stop this and it will not jump. You see that? Look. All the way. Up again. Gradual on there, look. Just literally, just lightly touching that and let it go. Same with the Technics. Let's do it lightly. Let's lightly, look. There you go. Again with the Denon. Nothing. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, Jay, what's your point? What's the big deal about that? Why does it matter? That makes a huge difference, everybody. It really does. When you're beat mixing, okay, now let's put it another way. You've got 2 of these. Like majority of DJs out there who use vinyl probably have, from like the early 80s and 90s, etc. I've got a pair of new old stock Technics myself, right? So you've got these. Both your channels are open. You want to make a tiny little adjustment. And you decide you don't want to just move and ride the pitch control. Because a lot of DJs out there, there's this whole myth of people that use the pitch bend to get their tracks in. They basically go, I want to slow it down, they do this and put it to where they think it is. Some DJs, like myself, prefer to go, right, it needs to be slowed down while the channel's open. Let's quickly just, you know, brush it like that, but real quickly brush it and then move it, brush it, move it, and do it like that. And on even tighter turntables that have just been recently serviced, as well, like the same as what I do, when you move that tiny little amount, you can just literally brush the top of the record in the center spindle, and that'll make a difference. With this, literally, you can have your channel faders open and just brush it. It doesn't jump, doesn't do anything. You can literally brush it like that and make the minuscule movement that you need to on the pitch slider. Now that, in my book, is excellent. And I'll be honest, out of all of the modern turntables, like I explained briefly in the other video that I did on this, this is probably, well, it isn't probably, this is the best modern turntable I have used with digitally controlled pitch. Now, the pitch control itself, guys, it's a bit of a strange one. There's a lot of people moaning about the pitch on this. Let's quickly talk about the Technics one. So Technics obviously has a plus and minus 8% logarithmic pitch control slider, which is analog control with a variable resistor underneath the slider on the main board. So you physically calibrate the board when it's not connected to the main board. Then you connect it back up. You set that obviously you set that to its own variable resistance. You then set the main board to its own frequency as well. There's a couple of different. There's one frequency you pretty much use as standard, as obviously allocated in the Panasonic service manual, which a lot of us will know. And if you don't touch Technics, don't worry, it'll go straight over your head. But basically, you calibrate this to the factory settings, and you should pretty much get either your 3.3 will be just over 2, nearly 2.5. Sometimes you get your 6 dead on +6. Sometimes it's slightly over towards +7. Your minus 3.3 is usually around 2 and a bit anyway as well. And that's what you'll find with a lot of turntables. If you are recalibrating your turntables at home and you're wondering why they're not lining up, that's one reason why. It can go into a lot of different details, but especially with new sliders and new components, this can happen. And it's not out of the ordinary. My brand new stock Technics Mark IIs, for an example, these are literally box fresh turntables, exactly the same. Yeah, it's a +6 lines up perfectly, but the 3.3 is just over 2, and the minus 3.3 is just over 2 as well. That's how it was out of the box. Now I'm going to do a few bits to it, but that's irrelevant. That's pretty much how they are. This turntable, now, a lot of people moan with these digitally pitch controlled sliders because, I mean, I am the classic for it. I don't like them at all, okay? You can get away with mixing. You can pull off a mix on a lot of them, but this one you actually can mix very, very well on. So the biggest quibbles with this turntable, obviously being the arm feedback as well, what you get through your speakers, sounds very tinny. But the slider itself, now, there's a couple of things that I noticed. One, the actual indent, I don't know if you can see this. Let's try and zoom that. Can we see that? Can you see the gap underneath the slider? Let's try and get that without it. Right, can you see that now? There's a big gap actually underneath. You can get your nail underneath it, look. I don't know why they've done it so high, to be honest. Very, very strange, but that's not the end of the world. It just feels weird when you're trying to, you got your hand on top and the actual slider, the curved section is actually as higher than what the deck would be, if that makes sense. So you're used to things being flush, so the bottom of that should be touching a bit lower. You can see it. Now, whether that's bad design work or what, I don't know. But I suppose I could take the actual pitch control plastic knob off itself, drill it down a little bit, or maybe machine it down slightly so it fits a bit lower. But that's just me. You may get on with it absolutely fine. And to be fair, I do as well, but that is a little bit of an annoyance. The second big annoyance. Now, people are talking about dead spots towards the end and the lower top end and the upper top end as well, of the bottom and the top end of the pitch slider range. Now, I've not physically plugged this into a computer to see this, but I would imagine that is the case because it doesn't move anything on the actual turntable itself. But I can tell you now, the biggest problem that I have with this turntable is the dead zone at around the 0 point. Now, let's talk about the pros of this first. It is extremely smooth. This isn't a super OEM turntable, guys. So it's not something which has just been, you know, taken from the handpin factory and just like, you know, it's a DJT or whatever it is, 5500, you know, rebadged and called a Pioneer or called it anything else. This is a completely rebuilt from the ground up turntable. Now, I don't know whether or what factory's done it. We don't know whether these have been mass produced anywhere else and been called a different name, because that would be very interesting to find out if someone has. Obviously have a different arm, etc., and look different, but it'd be good to see, because this, like I say, is the best turntable for beat mixing that I have found on the modern market. And I've been DJing a very long time, and all I do is mix and scratch. So I'm a good all-rounder. All right. So, and also, I mix long blends. I don't just do like 10-second things and fling the fader over. I keep them going for a good couple of minutes. And this is the same what everyone seems to be having problems with on modern turntables because of the digitally controlled sliders and due to the fact that they step. And it is a pain. So digital stepping, basically, guys, if I explained it before, the smallest little minuscule movement that you make is pretty much like this. It's either too much or too little. It's not moving in tiny little increments. It's moving in blocks. So it's very annoying. Now, what they've done with this is brilliant, and you can mix. I'm not even going to go into the fact about the mixing, because I can tell you now, if you jump on them from Technics, you will get on with this straight away. You really will. You'll just be very annoyed with the build quality, everything else on this deck, and it is such a shame. But when you get down, if you look at the dots here, you'll see when they stop in a second. If I keep going, right there. Look at where it is. Now, and you can actually see it on here as well, you will see when I move this, look at the size of the gap for the dead spot. Now that can be a little bit annoying for some DJs that flick between different styles. Now, again, it doesn't bother me because I spend most of my range. I start my tracks around +1. Now, again, you can't tell what you're playing at because 1, there's no strobe dots, and 2, there's no numbers actually on the slider. That's a little bit of a pain. Let's be honest, that is. But, you know, you could just say, we'll move it down to here. You could pretty much know what you're doing with a Technics 1210. So you pretty much get an idea just by looking where you're going to roughly want it. But it would have been nice to have actually had the range, you know, printed on there, even if it's only ±8, even though we got up to 50% pitch. Now, the dead spot around that, like I've just said, is quite long. It's quite a big dead spot. Now, Denon, from what I've been seeing on forums, I haven't bothered giving it in music group a call because I don't really want to start wasting people's time and doing things if it's all printed online, because Denon have already confirmed this, or in music have already confirmed this. That the reason the dead spot is so big is because if you're a turntablist, for an example, and you want to be able to find the 0 point quickly, you just move it here and you know that around the 0 point here, it's going to lock. Now, that's all well and good, but I think that's a ridiculous feature they've put in. Because the reality is, guys, if you want to go up here and you want to reset the 0, what are you going to do? You're going to hit reset, aren't you? Then you're going to move it back to wherever it is you want it and hit the reset again. So that's a little bit silly. I don't know why they've done that. Maybe it's because of calibration issues. Who knows? Who knows? It's designed like that. So everyone that moans, why is it doing this? That's a design. It's how it is. They won't say it's a fault, but I think it is. But that's just how it is. Obviously, ±8. So 8% pitch, plus and minus. So you've got plenty of range there. If you're used to using the Technics 1210, you'll feel at home with this straight away. You can, excuse me. You can mix at ±16, just. I'd say that's probably about as hairy as mixing on a modern turntable, like a super OEM turntable, but it still mixes better, even at +16. Now, the +50, yeah, you've got no hope to do that. I've tried it. You can lock them slightly, but they just waver way too quick and they drift out. So my best advice is stick to 8 and 16%. Obviously, if you're a turntablist, it doesn't really matter because you can pitch to whatever you want and you'll feel at home. Now, this turntable also comes with, as you can see here, it's got a removable target. So this one here, obviously being the chrome style look, has the bright white LED. It also comes with a black LED lamp as well, with a warm white LED. Now, I haven't got that on it because I'm not really that bothered. Plus the fact the shop didn't send it to me because this is actually an ex-display model. So thank you very much to the retailer that did that. So I'm not going to name any names. The DJ shop, thank you. But yeah, so removable target lamp. And obviously being an LED, it's quite hard to blow them unless you get nasty power surges that go through decks. Obviously something like this with the original Technics, these tend to have just lamps in them unless people modify them like myself. Obviously the newer versions all have LEDs now. But no, that's the only drawback to these. You've got to remove everything, desolder the switch, desolder everything, and just to get your light working. So LED is by far the best way of doing it. If you've got a box fresh set of Technics, then excellent. I mean, there's nothing better. But that's a nice way to do it. Projects the lamp all the way through the record. This one isn't too bright. As you can see on here, it's got a nice projection of LED light to it. So you can see the entire groove of the record, and you can also angle it to your liking as to where, obviously, you would like the LED to hit on the record. So I have mine usually sort of sitting towards the middle. That's what I tend to do with these pop-up lamps. People have been asking me how it compares to the Stanton, how it compares to the Reloop, how it compares to the Pioneer, the Audio Technica. Guys, this is the best deck. This is, out of all of them, this is the best deck to use. Okay, now I did a review a little while ago, as you all know, on the Reloop, the RP7000 Mark II. Now the RP7000 Mark II is a fantastic deck. It's got a lot of really good features for the price that you pay. But this sets it above the rest because of the pitch and obviously the motor, the way that the platter is controlled. No jumps, doesn't want to correct itself straight away. It is a very, very, very good turntable and a lot of fun to use, purely for long transitions with beat mixing. So if you've got an old pair of turntables at the moment and you want to just get into beat mixing and you can't quite afford, well, say you can't afford Technics, let's be honest, you can buy a set of Technics now for probably the price of one of these if you're very lucky and catch people at the right time. But if you must buy a brand new turntable, I wouldn't even touch the Mark 7. It's terrible in comparison to this for mixing. This is better than mixing on the Mark 7 Technics. I don't care what anybody says. This is much better than mixing on the Mark 7. Okay. Much better than mixing on the straight 150. Much easier to mix than the Pioneer. And a million times better to mix than the Reloop. Now, the Reloop, the Pioneer, and the Stanton, for an example, the Audio Technica, they're all super OEM turntables that are all made in the same factory. They just look different, or look slightly different from each other because of the arm assemblies, the pitch, Pioneer arm. There's loads of integrals that are the same, the hand-pin motor. You'll find that if you're buying the cheapest of the lot, you're buying exactly the same turntable, just in a different shell with somebody else's badge on. And they won't tell you that. Shops won't tell you that neither. But I am telling you that because I know this. So this turntable isn't a super OEM. It may have an arm that looks identical to an old Gemini or maybe an old Cam deck, but give it their dues. That out the way, this deck performs beautifully. Has removable cables as well. Now, the only problem that I tend to find is with the side here. So, again, it's not internally grounded, which is great because it's got a direct connection from the turntable to your mixer. So it eliminates any hum or hiss or anything. You've got separate RCA outputs on the back, so you can plug straight direct into your mixer with any cables that you wish to use. It does actually come with a set of RCAs, real thick RCAs too. The only problem is, again, the shop, when they boxed this up, obviously didn't care what cable they put in because they put the wrong power cable in, because they're meant to come with angled power adapters, so it sits flush. But if you're unlucky enough to do that, obviously this is what you have to do. So the angled connectors, they actually hide underneath. So you can have this in battle mode or club mode with relative ease, and obviously your mixer's going to hide everything too. And with this as an L shape, it will be right underneath the deck. So some people were moaning on my old video saying about the power adapters and don't like it and making a big deal out of it. I don't know why, because it does come with angled adapters. The shop just didn't put the right cable in for this to do the review properly, which is such a shame. What else have we got on here that I can talk about? Obviously the feet, they were renowned for the feet as well, saying that this was the best isolation for feet within the industry and the highest torque in the industry. I've got no doubt this is really high torque and it's very easy to use. The feet on this turntable, yeah, I'm not overly impressed. The overall build quality, it is a very heavyweight turntable. Now, when compared to the Mark 7 and a lot of the newer turntables, I'd say this one is probably worse in terms of feedback than the Mark 7 was. Now, there's a very popular review by, who we got, Mojax at DJ City. Did a review on the MK7 quite a while ago now when it was released. I think he put it on top of a subwoofer. Now, I've done very similar with this. This turntable has worse feedback than the Mark 7 has. So in terms of the best to worst, this one's the worst, closely followed by the Mark 7. So a lot of people will be thinking to themselves, well, if it's got bad feedback, it's got cheap tone arm quality, and there's lots of issues, what's the point of buying one? I mean, they are expensive and now they're discontinued, but it means they're going to be harder to find. And like I say, this turntable is great, but it's mainly suited towards home DJs. Okay. The only other people that will get along with this straight away, if you're going to be using this in venues, are people that use digital vinyl, so DVS, so basically Serato, Record Box or Tractor. Because as you know, when you tap things going through Tractor or Serato, because they're a line level signal, it won't matter about the vibrations. So it doesn't really matter about anything on the arm. You have the anti-skate set as high as you want or whatever, set it to relative mode, have the weight as heavy as you want so it's not going to skip. This is going to cater towards DVS DJs more than vinyl. In terms of the audio, you've got to be very light-handed. I may try and mod the arm on this at some point and change the entire assembly for something a little bit more substantial, say for an example, the Technics arm. I might even put a straight tone arm on it. We'll see what happens. This isn't going anywhere, this is mine. So, but yeah, it is a great deck. But like I say, this is catered more at the moment for home DJs. Like I said, if you're going to be using these in venues, then you're going to need to make sure you've got a lot of damping on them. So decent feet, decent bases for the turntables to stop vibrations. These are pretty much bomb-proof. I mean, you could stick a slab underneath it and this thing would go all day and all night with hardly any issues whatsoever. This, unfortunately, isn't quite like it. There are a couple of quirks that people are talking about. There's a lot of problems people are tend to be having with these decks. from wobbly platters to the motor wavering after periods of time. Now, I've not had that yet with this, and obviously I'll report that as soon as something happens. Now, at the moment, retail price on these, if you can still buy them, which I'm pretty sure you can at the moment, they're $599 each. They're a lot of money. So people that are looking between Technics and these, they're probably going to be swayed towards the Technics purely for the fact it's got Technics written on it. But unless you're going to buy the older Technics, if you must buy something new and the only option that you have is to buy a brand new turntable and you're happy using them at home knowing about the feedback issues, the low arm quality, and most importantly, the zero, big indent on the zero. Sounds like a lot, but this is the best modern turntable for mixing. If you are a mixing DJ and you want to buy a brand new turntable, get these while you can. And look, worst comes to worst, you can buy them from a shop, can't you? You can buy them from a shop, you get a set amount of days to try things out and return them with no quibble refund. Just make sure you box things up properly. Best advice I'd do is if they haven't got them out on display, which a lot of shops tend not to put things out on display these days because they don't want to devalue them, or it's just terrible really. Customers want to go into a shop and be hands-on. They want to see how things work. They don't want to go out and spend £1,200 on a pair of turntables and not know what they feel like when you're using them. They don't want to know when they get it back and undo it, the disappointment they're going to have with the quality of the arm, the qualities of the buttons, because all it's going to do is make them take it straight back. And the truth is excuse me, if you're already prepared for this and you know about this is why I'm doing this video, you could walk into that shop and go, right, I know it's got this, I know the buttons are this quality, I know it's got a heavyweight platter, I know it's got a really good pitch, I know it's got this, and I'm not just saying this, the pitch on this deck is fantastic, it really is fantastic, and the smallest little movements, excellent, 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 excellent. Just everything else lets it down. This could have been, I've said this before, this could have been a fantastic turntable if they had have actually thought this through properly. Same as everybody. It's almost like they've got a budget or they've ran out of time. And all they've done is gone, right, we'll stick that tone arm onto this turntable and that'll be done. We'll make it fit. It's got the same pivot underneath. We'll make it fit. And that's pretty much what they've done. It's a shame because it looks lovely. I think it's a really nice looking turntable. It really is. I love all the way that the Denon DJ logos around the sides and the front. I love the brushed aluminium look plate on the top. That is actually a brush plate. Like I said, you can undo it and take it off. There's nothing underneath it, so I wouldn't recommend doing it because you may bend it. But no, it's a very nice quality turntable. It is just a shame about the arm. And like I said, the feedback. Feedback can be sorted. I mean, that's something that I can look into. Tone arm, changing the tone arm assembly is one thing, and maybe just changing the tube will make a big difference. But the feedback of the deck itself, that's something that needs to be sorted, and I'm sure I can do this. Things like the tact switches, I mean, again, the tactile switches, they're very firm. I can probably soften them up so it actually feels like more of an indent like the Technics when you physically push it down. So I could probably do that on this, to be honest. Maybe chamfer a bit of the the back of the button off, or just change the tactile switch. So that's absolutely fine. So just to sum this up, everybody, out of all the turntables that I've had a go on, modern turntables, which are all usually super OEMs, this turntable, not being a super OEM, is by far the best turntable I have used for mixing. So before anybody moans online or comments underneath and starts saying this turntable's not very good, listen to what I'm saying carefully, okay? Because there's always going to be keyboard warriors. I find this on all of my videos, and I'm sorry, but I'm not, you're entitled to your opinion. That's absolutely fine. But I'm telling you, from somebody that repairs these for a living, okay? I've been doing this for a very, very long time. This turntable right here, the Denon DJ VL12 Prime, is the best modern day turntable that I have ever used with digitally controlled pitch. It is the best turntable out of the lot, okay? Yes, it has its quirks. Yes, the arm quality is not very good, okay? Yes, the feedback dampening is terrible. If you just use timecode at home, like digital vinyl, and you're not using normal vinyl, you will be well happy with this when you take it home. It's just whether you're prepared to spend the money. Either you buy a pair of these and hope to get a good pair, get them serviced if need be. I'm here to help with that. Or you buy a pair of these brand new before they all go. Like I say, they're discontinued now, everybody. So you're not going to find many of these about. And if you're very lucky, you can pick them up cheap on eBay. I missed out on another one to go alongside with this one here for about 340 quid. I was absolutely devastated when I missed that because it was so cheap. This one cost me $419. Denon were doing a deal at one point to try and shift these, I think. And I managed to grab the X display, and luckily I did, because none of these are available for that price anymore. All retailers that were selling them for that price have all sold out, because they are nice turntables. But like I say, it is, just to sum this up, great deck. Shame about the tone arm and dampening really for it. Best deck for pitch control. It is fantastic. You can't beat the iconic Technics Mark IIs, but if you really must go for a brand new turntable, just for mixing, this is what you go for. And I cannot stress that enough. I will try and get another one at some point. I'll try and do a side-by-side review. I'm not bothered about the whole monetization thing on YouTube or anything like that, or getting paid for the video of doing something like that. This is purely to show you all that this turntable does mean business, and to stress that don't knock it until you've tried it. It's one of those, okay? If you've got a chance to have a go on one of these in a showroom, or someone's got one of these out on display somewhere and they've got records there, or it's connected to a computer, get them to plug it in. Get them to set it all up for you. Trust me, it's worth a go. I mean, I've just literally bought a pair of brand new old stock Mark IIs. So this is why I haven't done it. This turntable will actually be going home with me as my third deck within the setup. So I'm going to have two new old stock Technics Mark IIs and the VL12 Prime sitting in the middle of them all. And that's going to be a fantastic little addition. Now, I wouldn't be doing that if this turntable wasn't very good. Okay, so just to summarise, great turntable. Discontinued now, unfortunately. If you are interested in them, try and find someone that's got them. Excellent pitch control on it. Love the platter. Great build quality, apart from the damping and the arm. Only things that let them down. Any questions on them, everybody? You know how to get hold of me. Fire us over a message. www.justtechnics.co.uk on my website. You can email me as well. Also, the email's on the website. Grab us on Facebook. So facebook.com/justtechnics. Just type in Just Technics, you'll find me. My vinyl cutter's decided to wake up. That's nice. But yeah, any questions, stick them down below. I'll try and comment to you as quick as I can. I'm going to get on with some more work. Thanks for watching, guys. Take it easy. Have fun.